Heather, am I clear to go?
You are good to go.
Great. The court calls, I believe it's pronounced Weirs versus Lush Fertilizer Company or Incorporated. Can I have entries of appearance from the plaintiff?
Good evening, Your Honor, members of the jury, opposing counsel. My name is Katie Hay, and I will be presenting the closing statement, and I, along with my co-counsel, represent the plaintiff. Our timekeeper has put our team's roster as well as pronouns in the chat. We would appreciate it if someone on the opposing team could do that the same. Permission for my co-counsel to introduce herself.
Yes.
Good evening, Your Honor, members of the jury and opposing counsel. My name is Reese Brown, and I will be directing Dr. Devin Williams, crossing Mr. Blake Doncourt and Dr. Devin Williams, and making the opening argument.
Thank you very much. Is that it in terms of plaintiff's attorneys?
Yes, that's
Okay.
all of our attorneys.
Great. Entries from, oh, sorry, go ahead.
Oh, sorry. Permission for our witnesses to introduce themselves.
That'd be great. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Iris McClure, and I am Dakota Weirs.
Good day, Your Honor. Excuse us. Good day, Your Honor. My name is Liv Lane, and I am Carson Durst.
Hello, I'm Trinity Doyle, and I am Dr. Casey Rogers.
Great. Thank you very much. And from the defense?
Good afternoon, Your Honor, opposing counsel, and members of the jury. My name is Emily Simon, and I will be conducting the direct examination of Dr. Devin Williams, along with the cross of Dakota Weirs.
Good evening, Your Honor. My name is Kate Blair. I will be conducting the direct examination of Blake Doncourt, along with the cross-examination of Dr. Casey Rogers, as well as the opening statement.
Good evening. My name is Jack Walker, and I will be doing the direct examination of Skylar Weirs, the cross-examination of Carson Durst, and the closing statement.
Permission for our witnesses to introduce themselves?
Yes, please.
Good evening, Your Honor. My name is Taylor Davis, and today I am Blake Doncourt.
Good evening, Your Honor. My name is Sutton Damiano, and today I am Dr. Devin Williams.
Good evening, Your Honor. My name is Bradley Calkins, and today I'm Skylar Weirs.
Wonderful. Thank you very much. As my little screen here says, I'm Judge Vizioli. You can call me Judge. And are there any preliminary matters before we get started from the plaintiff?
Yes, Your Honor. We have two housekeeping matters at this time. First, we request permission to reserve any time not used in our closing argument for rebuttal. And second, there are stipulated facts that have been agreed to before the trial today. We request that these facts are constructively read into the record. Your Honor, we have no further housekeeping matters.
Great. Any objections from the defense to those particular issues?
No objections, Your Honor.
Okay, great. And it's my understanding that each team has a timekeeper. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, we'll do periodic time checks, especially at the time of closing. And so if you do have time remaining, rebuttal for the plaintiff will be permitted. Defense, any preliminary matters?
No, Your Honor.
Okay, great. Before we get into opening statements, are there any motions in limine to address?
No,
it's okay if there's not. Okay, great. If everyone, including attorneys, jurors, witnesses, timekeepers, could please raise their right hand. Do you all swear to abide by the rules of this tournament and participate in good faith?
Yeah, I do.
Thank you.
I do.
Are you all prepared to proceed, plaintiff?
Yes, Your Honor.
And defense?
Yes, Your Honor.
Great. Plaintiff, feel free to proceed with your opening statement.
Thank you, Your Honor. Your Honor, members of the jury, and the opposing counsel, my name is Reese Brown, and I represent the plaintiff in this case. Today, we have the burden of proof. My client, Dakota Weirs, has contracted non-Hodgkin's lymphoma due to elongated exposure to Lush fertilizer, specifically Darufo, the main ingredient in Lush. Lush used poison for profit. The evidence will show that Lush was negligent by creating a product that contained Darufo, a harmful chemical that can cause cancer. Specifically, it caused Miss Weirs to develop non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. The piano was Miss Weirs' passion and talent, earning her a scholarship to the prestigious music school, Juilliard. But Dakota can no longer follow her dreams of going to Juilliard because of her non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. Darufo caused Dakota's cancer because Lush used poison for profit. Lush had a choice about ensuring the safety of their product, yet they decided to neglect it. To prove that Darufo and Lush caused Dakota Weirs non-Hodgkin's lymphoma, we will call 3 witnesses to the stand. First, Ms. Dakota Weirs herself. She will testify about her life before Lush. She was an active member in her community before non-Hodgkin's lymphoma took over her life. Dakota will share how she was a student body president, volunteered at a homeless shelter, participated in the National Honor Society, played piano, and had a job working at Haven Landscaping, where she first encountered Lush and their products. The same products that would later cause non-Hodgkin's lymphoma and change her life forever. Next, you'll hear from Carson Durst. Ms. Durst, a former Lush employee, will speak about an email sent by Lush's product manager showing that Lush knew Darufo could be dangerous. She will also share how Lush silenced her scientists who found that Darufo was possibly hazardous to humans. Finally, you'll hear from Dr. Casey Rogers. Dr. Rogers is a research analyst for a chemical company and an expert in agriculture and chemistry. She'll talk about her studies on Darufo and its dangers. Dr. Rogers found that prolonged exposure to Darufo, like Ms. Weirs, can have effects such as non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. Her results showed that people exposed to Darufo for a long time were 10 times more likely to be diagnosed with cancer. Dr. Rogers will share the direct link she found between Darufo and cancer. Today, you'll also hear from the defense and their 3 witnesses. They'll try to persuade you to believe that Dakota is the one to blame for her life-altering non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. Ms. Blake Doncourt, the CEO of Lush Fertilizer, will tell you how Lush chose not to bake their fertilizer when that could have eliminated all risks of the harmful product. Lush silenced their scientists who found Darufo could be dangerous. Also, Ms. Doncourt will talk about their recent divorce with their ex-wife and the financial trouble because of it. Additionally, Skylar Weirs, Dakota Weirs' very own twin, will testify today. Skylar has written obscure articles in the past ranging from topics from flat earth to anti-vax to UFOs. Not to mention, Skylar has no college degree. Skylar has a gambling problem, and with their family's recent money strain due to Dakota's illness, their family has stopped helping them with these debts. The defense will also call Dr. Devin Williams. Dr. Williams openly admits to having a sizable financial bias in this case. Today, they will talk about the ban of Darufo in the EU and the constant turnover at Lush, possibly hindering the integrity of the studies. I'd like to remind the jury that as the plaintiff, we have the burden of proof. Today, we must prove 1, the defendant manufactured a fertilizer product containing Darufo. 2, the defendant was negligent by failing to exercise reasonable care. 3, the plaintiff was one of those people that should have been expected to use the product. And 4, the plaintiff has damages caused by the defendant's negligence. Throughout all the witnesses you'll hear from today, there's one common theme. Dakota Weirs is not responsible for her non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. It was Lush, an extensive corporation with the opportunity to make their products safer and chose not to. Lush used poison for profit. We have to prove that more likely than not, Lush was negligent and therefore responsible for Miss Dakota Weirs' non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. Once we meet these expectations, we ask that your verdict rule in favor of Miss Dakota Weirs, and she is compensated for the damages Lush and Darufo have caused her. Thank you.
Thank you, Counselor. An opening statement for the defense.
Thank you, Your Honor. Responsibility. Everyone is responsible for themselves. Your actions are your own. Your decisions are yours to make. The consequences of your actions are your responsibility. Dakota Weirs was diagnosed with non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. This disease has taken many things from Dakota, And in times like these, it is understandable to look for answers. When confronted with something new and confusing, it is natural to go in search of an explanation. This is exactly what Dakota has done. You are going to feel empathy for them. You should feel empathy for Dakota. This is a terrible disease, but empathy is not the same as responsibility. Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, I'm going to repeat myself. Empathy is not the same as responsibility. It is reasonable to want to blame someone in this situation. It is what most people would do. We are here today, though, as the wrong company is being blamed for Dakota's terrible disease. The evidence of this case will show that Lush Fertilizer took all the necessary precautions to ensure the safety of their consumers. Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, we ask you to find who carries the responsibility for Dakota's illness. What has happened to Dakota is a tragedy, but who is really responsible? The judge will instruct you that we do not have the burden of proof in this case. We do not have to present any evidence here today, but we will. Today, the defense will call 3 witnesses to the stand. Firstly, we will call Blake Doncourt, the CEO of Lush Fertilizer, to testify on the merits of the company in question. You are going to see that this is a family-grown company founded in hopes of improving environmental conditions. We will then call Skylar Weirs to the stand. Yes, this is Dakota Weirs' twin sister. You will hear from Skylar that she's invested in finding the truth, and this is exactly what she has done. Skylar is a firm believer in the truth, and she is here testifying today against her family to reveal the truth of this terrible situation. Skylar is going to tell you under oath the truth, that there is no solid link between Drufo and non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. Most importantly, you will hear from Dr. Devin Williams, who will testify on the science behind the chemical in question today, Drufo. Dr. Devin Williams has devoted her life to science. In fact, Dr. Williams, with an amazing set of credentials and expertise in toxicology and chemical research, is going to qualify as an expert. With these credentials, she will testify on the lack of evidence into Drufo being carcinogenic. With a career in publishing and teaching the profession of toxicology, Dr. Williams will show that Drufo is not responsible for Dakota's illness. From this testimony, the defense will show that Lush Fertilizer is not responsible for Dakota Weirs' disease. Lush Fertilizer prides themselves on responsibility, and this is an important obligation that the company continues to uphold. Today, we will prove to you that the responsibility of this case does not fall in the hands of Lush Fertilizer, and that we must see the truth behind the matter. Today, we ask you all to take a step back, set aside sympathy and bias, and look into the evidence the plaintiff will present you. Dakota's employer didn't force her to wear protective gear, disregarding Lush's safety recommendations. Carson Durst is working for the competitor of Lush Fertilizer. In this case, only fuels their career. The dangers of Drufo were only brought to the attention of Lush's CEO at the start of this trial. After you hear Carson's testimony, you will wonder, why didn't they come forward sooner? Dr. Casey Rogers only found correlation between Drufo and cancer, not causation. Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, correlation is absolutely not the same as causation. The word cause, ladies and gentlemen, should stick out to you. The judge will instruct you to determine if Drufo causes non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. After listening to Dr. Rogers' testimony, you will notice that they have no evidence of causation, only correlation. This raises the question, is Drufo truly responsible for Dakota's illness? You, ladies and gentlemen of the jury, are the sole judges of credibility in this case. We are asking you to find that Lush Fertilizer is not at fault for Dakota's disease. We are devastated for Dakota, but that will not stop us from showing you the truth of this case. We are confident that when you've been presented with the evidence, you will find that Lush Fertilizer is not responsible for Dakota's non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you, Counselor. Would the plaintiff like to call their first witness?
Yes, Your Honor. We'd like to call Dakota Weirs to the stand.
Great. And Mr. Weirs, Miss Weirs, you have been sworn in already. And just a reminder that you're under oath.
Sorry, I couldn't see her on the screen. Is it all right if I proceed?
You may.
Hello, Ms. Weers. Please state your name and spell your last name for the record.
Hello, my name is Dakota Weirs, Weirs.
What are you doing here today, Ms. Weers?
I am here today because I am suing Lush Fertilizer because their product caused my cancer.
Can you tell us a bit about what type of cancer you have?
Yes, I have non-Hodgkin's lymphoma, which is a type of cancer that affects the lymphatic system. This has caused a lot of problems for me, including swollen lymph nodes, shortness of breath, fatigue, bruising, and a bunch of other symptoms, all of which make it incredibly hard for me to do the things that I love.
Are you in a lot of pain because of your condition?
Yes, the swollen lymph nodes alone are quite painful, not to mention all of my other symptoms. Even sitting in this chair today is difficult.
What do you believe caused your cancer?
Well, I went through an extremely rough time when I was starting to feel sick. And I went to the doctor, and after scores of medical bills and doctor's appointments, I was diagnosed with non-Hodgkin's lymphoma.
Where do you believe, you said it was Lush Fertilizer, right? Where do you believe you were exposed to that?
Oh, yes. I was exposed to Lush Fertilizer through Haven's Landscaping, the place that I worked when I was 14. And that was the primary fertilizer we used.
Did you wear any protective clothing while at Haven Landscaping?
Somewhat, but not most of the time. It was usually incredibly hot outside, and none of the adults or coworkers I worked with were wearing any protective clothing. I would have worn protective clothing if I had known it would have caused me cancer, though. I probably wouldn't have even gone near the product at all.
What made you think that Drufo was the cause of your cancer?
Well, after a spout of depression, me and my dad were watching the news, and a show came on the news that said that Drufo had been banned in the EU, and I contacted my old boss, and he told me that Drufo was part of the fertilizer that we used when I worked at Haven's Landscaping.
What was your life like before all of this?
I was an active member of my community. I did an enormous amount of extracurricular activities, and I excelled in my classes. I volunteered at the local homeless shelter, was a part of my student government, and helped out as much as I could. I can't do that anymore.
Thank you. Can you tell us a bit about your sister, Skylar Weirs?
Yes. My sister is my twin, and we haven't been particularly close recently. After I have been paying a lot of medical bills, she was frustrated that I have been getting money from my
Objection
dad.
to speculation.
Response to speculation?
Speculation in regards to that she was upset.
Defense counsel, can you clarify your objection?
Yeah. Objection to her personal knowledge of how her twin sister felt.
Well, Dakota had interacted with Skylar after her parents had stopped supporting her, so she would likely know personally how her sister felt about the situation.
All right, I'm going to overrule the objection. If you could just lay a little bit more foundation as to how the witness had that personal knowledge.
All right. Okay. So, Ms. Weirs, when you and your sister were younger, were you two very close?
Yes, we were extremely close. We went everywhere together, except for when I worked at Haven's landscaping, partially because she's allergic to grass, so she can't really do that.
What does she do for a living now?
She is a journalist, and has written a number of articles, some of which are not from an educated standpoint and reference flat Earth and UFOs.
Thank you. Ms. Weirs, what has been the worst part about your cancer? I think there's an internet issue on our side. Sorry.
That's okay. I believe Miss Weirs is frozen.
Yeah.
If anyone has another way of contacting the witness to have her reconnect.
I can go. Reese, do you want to go
Oh.
see?
She just logged off, so hopefully she logs right back on.
Yeah. She's across the hall, so we can go see
Okay.
if she's okay.
Great. Okay, great. I think that
Hi.
we're
Can you
back. That's okay. Counsel, if you could re-ask your last question, that would be fantastic.
All right, thank you. Ms. Weirs, what has been the worst part about your cancer?
The worst part is, the worst part is that I lost what I desired to do most in the world, playing the piano. Playing the piano has been my dream since I was a child. And now that I can't do that anymore.
Why is piano so important to you?
Well, my grandpa has always inspired me because when I was little, he was an accomplished piano player, but unfortunately passed away when I was 7. And to get closer to him, I learned how to play the piano, and I got quite good at it. I eventually was able to get into Juilliard with my piano playing abilities.
Can you still play piano after everything?
No, that's the worst part imaginable. I can barely sit down for the shortest songs without getting bruising or fatigue. It is so painful to do that.
Ms. Weirs, just to restate, what are your reasons for being here today?
I'm here today because I do not want this to happen to anyone else. If I can stop it, then I know that I can do something good for whoever may have this again.
Thank you, Ms. Weirs. No more questions, Your Honor.
Thank you.
Your
Thank
Honor,
you, Counselor, and defense counsel, if you'd like to cross-examine.
okay. Now, Ms. Weirs, you worked at Haven Landscaping since you were 14.
Yes, that is correct.
While working at Haven, you used many different fertilizers, right?
Yes, but our primary one was Lush.
But you only worked with Lush fertilizer for a few years, right?
Yes, while I worked there.
So there was a period of time where you didn't use Lush fertilizer at all while working there.
Some of the time, yes.
So there was a period of time where you were working at Haven and you weren't using Lush fertilizer, correct?
Correct.
After no longer using Lush fertilizer, you continued to use various other fertilizers, didn't you?
I did, but Lush was still my primary fertilizer that I used.
You also worked in different places, correct?
Well, we moved in different areas, yes.
You worked indoors and outdoors, correct?
Yes.
All right. And I'd like to turn to the topic of protective gear. While working with various fertilizers, you wore shorts, right?
Yes.
T-shirts?
Yes.
Now, you said in your previous statement that you somewhat wore protective gear. Isn't that right? You just said that to the jury?
Yes, I did.
Can you explain what somewhat meant in terms of protective gear?
Well, most of the time, a lot of the people were wearing protective gear, but not every day. Especially because it wasn't enforced as much as I would hope it would be now that I know it would cause me cancer.
So you're saying it wasn't enforced when you worked at Haven?
Not all the time.
Not all the time, but some of the time?
Yes.
You didn't wear face coverings while working there, correct?
No.
And you didn't cover your hands.
No, I would have if I known it would cause me cancer.
But your boss told you to cover your face, did he not?
He did, but it wasn't enforced.
In fact, didn't he always tell you to cover your face?
Yes, but like I said prior, nobody was covering their face or wearing any protective gear, so I looked to my supervisors.
Now, can I direct you to Exhibit 1?
Yes,
Ms. Weers, do you know what this document is?
I do. It is the warnings and ingredients of Lush fertilizer.
And would you say this is an accurate representation of the label that you saw while working with the product?
Yes.
Your Honor, I move for admission of Exhibit 1 into evidence.
Any objection to Exhibit 1?
No objections, Your Honor.
1 will be admitted.
Ms. Weers, under Exhibit 1, under the unit user safety recommendations, can you read what it says, please?
I do not have it pulled up right now. Would you be able to screen share that for me?
Sure.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Or actually, I can look at it right here.
Great.
Sorry about that.
You're fine.
Thank you. It says, as with any spray fertilizer, utilize protective clothing that can expose skin, usually of a respirator or N95 face mask, is recommended. Follow manufacturer's ingredients for cleaning / personal protective equipment. Users should wash hands before and after use of this product.
Does or does not the recommendation state to always wear clothing that covers the skin?
It does, yes.
And you said you were aware of this label while using the product, were you not?
I was partially aware of it, yes.
So you were aware of it while using the product and you saw this warning, correct?
I do not know if I say that in my witness statement. Would you like me to answer?
I would love if you know if you have seen this before. Go ahead.
I have seen this before, but I am not sure that I saw it directly while I was working.
So you believe you didn't see it directly while working there, correct?
No, I did see it, but I didn't see it while I was using the product.
So when did you see it then?
Before and after use. So while I was working there, but not while I used the product. Sorry, I'm kind of mean the same thing. I did not see it.
So you didn't see it at all while using the product?
I'm sorry. May I go back a few, or can you restate your question?
While working with Lush fertilizer, did you or did you not see the warning that stated you were wearing protective gear? Yes or
I
no?
did.
You
Yes.
did?
Yes.
Even though a moment ago you said you didn't see it.
I'm so sorry. I was confused about the question.
Okay. In spite of knowing full well that there was a warning and your boss's instructions, you didn't wear protective clothing, correct?
I did not. Yes, that is correct.
And you were fully aware of this while utilizing the products, that both your boss and the company warned against not wearing protective gear.
Yes, but it was still not enforced.
Moving away from protective gear, you were diagnosed with non-Hodgkin's lymphoma, correct?
Yes.
And when you were diagnosed, not one medical professional has told you it was from Lush, correct?
No, but it's clear to me that there is a lot of evidence to back up my claim.
And that's your diagnosis, no medical professional has told you it's from Lush, correct?
Correct.
Now, part of the reason you believe Lush is responsible is because of your twin sister, Skylar, who doesn't have cancer.
Yes, it's an environmental disease, so that makes sense from my timeline.
Ms. Weirs, do you have any medical degree?
I do not, but I have a high school education and I have been in many science classes.
Okay. No medical professional has told you twins always get cancer together, have they?
No, but it's an environmental disease.
In fact, isn't it possible Skylar could develop cancer in the future?
It is possible, but that is not the case.
How would you know it's not the case?
Because she hasn't experienced any of the symptoms that I've experienced.
Now, Ms. Weirs, you don't have any medical training or expertise, do you?
I do not.
No training in cancer or oncology?
No.
And you don't have any formal training in regards to toxicology either?
No.
So you have no formal training or expertise to determine if anything is cancer-causing or carcinogenic, correct?
I do not, but from previous studies, I can see how it would be possible.
All right, no further questions.
Thank you, counsel. Ms. Hay, any redirect?
No redirect, Your Honor.
Okay. May that witness be excused. She is gone, so hope there's no objection to her leaving. Would you like to call your next witness?
Yes, we'd like to call Carson Durst to the stand.
Great. Ms. Durst, I'll just remind you you're under oath. Go ahead, counselor.
All right, Ms. Durst, please state your name and spell your last name for the record.
Carson Durst, D-U-R-S-T.
Can you tell us a bit about your history with Lush?
When I graduated from college, I didn't at first want to work with Lush, but my friend Charles told me that Lush was hiring interns for the summer, and I thought that an internship would be a good idea, so I put in my application and I got hired to the research and development team.
What is your relationship with the CEO of Lush, Blake Doncourt?
We've been family friends for a really long time. I was best friends with Blake's son, Charles. We did travel team soccer together, and I had multiple family dinners with them.
What research did you do at Lush?
I researched the chemical compounds that compose Drufo. My specifics were to see if any dangerous side effects could occur due to the usage of Drufo.
What did you discover?
Well, I found a study from England that concluded that Drufo could be carcinogenic in rats.
Did you share your findings with anyone else?
I really tried to let everybody know this. The product manager would check and review our notebooks regularly and analyze the data. Their name is Gary Langley, and they were my product manager at the time, but the management reviewed our findings regularly, and we would also have meetings with everyone where we would share our findings, and I did share those findings.
All right, thank you. Your Honor, does my co-counsel have permission to screen share Exhibit 4?
Any objection?
No, Your Honor.
Then permission granted.
Thank you. Ms. Durst, do you have well, you can see what has been previously marked as Exhibit 4?
Yes.
All right, I direct your attention to that exhibit. Would you identify it, please?
Exhibit is a copy of an email sent by Gary Langley.
How do you know this?
I was sent this email directly.
Is it a fair and accurate representation?
Yes.
Your Honor, we move to enter Exhibit 4 into evidence.
Any objection to the admission of Exhibit 4?
None, Your Honor.
4 is admitted.
Thank you. Ms. Durst, when did you receive this email?
September of 2003, ma'am.
Could you please read the first sentence of the second paragraph?
Of course.
Aloud, please.
Following our lab's June Drufo study, concerns have arisen regarding generalized findings of potential carcinogenic qualities identified in the samples produced during a period early in the year. So we are reinitiating the study. Oh, just the first sentence?
Just the first sentences. All right,
Okay,
thank you.
sorry.
No, you're fine. What were your thoughts when you received this email?
The email isn't completely clear, but there was certainly pressure from management for the internal studies to be read a certain way.
Did anyone on the research teams express concerns regarding Drufo?
Yes, a few others did. One scientist concerned that not only
Your Honor, hearsay.
Response to hearsay?
I believe that is allowed under 801 D2D, a statement made by an employee of the opposing party.
The objection's overruled.
So I'll ask again. Ms. Durst, did anyone in the research teams express concern regarding Drufo?
Yeah, a few others did. One scientist expressed concern that not only Drufo may contain a carcinogen, but their analysis found that it was perhaps linked to non-Hodgkin's lymphoma specifically.
How did management react to this?
They tried to hide it. Alex Monroe said, "Let's keep this in the walls until we figure out what we're doing." And that's a quote.
Was there any follow-up to this research?
About a month later, I was given a copy of the study report. It didn't mention anything about our concerns that had been validated by our research.
Did it talk about non-Hodgkin's lymphoma?
No, it didn't mention non-Hodgkin's lymphoma at all.
Thank you. Are there any alternatives to using Drufo?
Yeah, Drufo is baked. If Drufo were baked, it would eliminate the possibility of being carcinogenic.
To your knowledge, does Lush bake their fertilizer?
To my knowledge, no. They choose to save money instead of baking their fertilizer and therefore ensuring people's safety.
So overall, what is your impression of Drufo based on your time at Lush?
I believe Drufo failed to disclose potential health effects of their product. We brought multiple complaints to them and concerns regarding the dangers of Drufo, but they did not choose to listen, and they chose to make a profit instead.
Thank you. No further questions, Your Honor.
Thank you, Counselor. Cross-examination.
Please. You worked at Lush Fertilizer close to 20 years ago, correct?
Correct.
And you had a pre-existing relationship with the Doncourt family, as you said earlier.
Yes, as I stated earlier.
You even called them the family that you never had.
Well, they were.
Cool. And while working at Lush, you oversaw the production of fertilizer, correct?
To some degree, yes, but I was an intern and I didn't work there for very long, so I didn't have the chance to really make an impact and see everything that was going on.
Okay. And when you joined Lush, you were fully qualified for that role based on your prior education.
I would say so, yes, considering I was hired.
Great. And throughout that time, you would say that you were a stand-up employee, like you never had any issues that would threaten your job.
Well, later on in my job, I did have some issues. People made claims against me, but I personally thought that I was doing good work, and I worked really hard for Blake. I wanted him to trust me. I wanted him to be proud of me, and I really wanted to grow this company while I was there.
But there was no personal wrongdoing, in your opinion?
Yeah.
Great. And we could say that you were about as reliable of an employee as possible.
I'm sorry, you cut out. Could you repeat, please?
You were about as reliable of an employee as possible.
I tried to be, certainly.
Great. And yet, as such a highly qualified employee, you never made any formal complaints to higher staff about the safety of the product.
That was above my pay grade, but I did try to let as many people know that there was a safety problem with the product.
Okay, so let's clarify. You never spoke to anybody about your concerns with the product.
Actually, yes, I did speak physically to people about my concerns.
Can you elaborate on that?
I did verbally use words to explain my concerns to people.
Okay. So who did you speak with?
Multiple people, including Blake Doncourt.
Okay. Can you confirm where you spoke about this in your witness statement?
What do you mean by where? Oh, sorry. I thought you meant like a physical place. Excuse me. Am I allowed to look at my witness statement at this time, Your Honor?
Do you recall the answer to the question without looking at your statement?
I believe I answered the question. Could you ask it again, please?
Did you ever, in your witness statement, did you say that you spoke to somebody about the safety of the product? Or did that ever actually happen?
I'm confused by the question.
So Ms. Durst, just to direct us forward, is there anywhere in your witness statement where you said you talked to anyone about that issue?
Yes.
I believe counsel's asking you where, and so you are in that case permitted to take a look at your statement if you could tell us a page number.
Thank you, Your Honor. Lost me. Yes, in the last page of my witness statement, line 139, it reads that Blake had ignored my concerns, but was now concerned about my expertise.
Your Honor, these are concerns about your competence as an employee and not about the safety of the product.
No, it's about the product.
How are they concerns about the product if you look at the context of the line?
Well, the next line reads that Lush Fertilizer tried to get a court order excuse me. Earlier on in my statement, I say that
So can we clarify? Earlier, you said that you verbally communicated with somebody about your concerns with the product based on your own findings.
yes.
And now we look back at your witness statement and we can clearly see that there's no iteration of such a thing.
Oh, excuse me, I misspoke. I didn't verbally express my opinions, but I did document them in my lab notebook.
So to go back to the primary point, you never spoke with anybody about your concerns with the product.
No, but Blake, the CEO of the company, did see what I had documented. And he had access to it at all points in time.
Again, can we go find a point in your witness statement where it says that Blake Doncourt saw your findings? I believe you assumed that Jerry Langley saw what you wrote. And that might be a possibility. We can move on to that point, but I believe that there's no point in your statement where you say that Blake Doncourt is familiar with your findings.
Your Honor, I don't think it should be my witness's job at this time to look through her witness statement to look for this information.
Well, Counselor, I would agree, but and it's a little bit messy, but this sounds like an impeachment by omission, that certainly the witness would have put something so important into her statement. And if Counselor's not seeing it, I think it's proper.
I do have the line in my statement in which I would be happy to read off to you, Your Honor.
Please do.
So one line in my statement, lines 58 through 60 read, when we had concluded our analysis in December of 2003, and this would be of Drufo, Gary gathered us all in a conference room to discuss our findings. Everyone presented their component of the analysis as Gary and an upper echelon manager, Alex Monroe, listened intently.
Okay, but back to that point, you said that Blake Doncourt saw your findings, and Blake Doncourt is not included in either of those sentences.
Blake Doncourt does have access to all data that is recorded in Lush Fertilizer. And I did write down my findings in my notebook, which would be considered data for the company.
Okay. So let's just clarify. You never mentioned any of your findings to a person who worked at Lush Fertilizer, despite you being a top tier employee.
Would you like me to reread lines 58 through 60 of my witness statement?
That's okay. I think I have a good sense of what happened. Could you answer my previous question?
Yes, as I stated earlier, both in this court and in my witness statement, that Gary gathered all of us, including me, in a conference room to discuss our findings.
Okay, but you never, clearly, you never say in your statement that you verbally communicated your own findings. Your Honor, I need to leave time for my co-counsel to have a cross-examination, so I'm going to let my self rest.
Understood. Any redirect from the plaintiff?
No redirect, Your Honor.
Okay. Plaintiff, would you like to call your next witness?
Yes, Your Honor. We call Dr. Casey Rogers to the stand.
And Dr. Rogers, you're still under oath.
Yes.
You may proceed.
Good evening, Dr. Rogers.
Good evening.
Could you please state your name and spell your last for the record?
Dr. Casey Rogers, Rogers.
And are you currently employed?
I am.
And where do you currently work?
I am a professor at UC Berkeley.
And what's your profession at UC Berkeley?
I'm a professor of horticulture and entomology.
And do you have a college degree?
I do. I have a PhD in agriculture and entomology from the University of California at Berkeley.
And any prior work in this field?
Yes, I worked as a research analyst for a large multinational chemical company.
And do you have any published work in this field?
I do. I've published numerous scholarly articles on the negative and harmful effects of prolonged exposure to various chemicals, one of which includes Drufo.
Your Honor, we moved on to this witness as an expert in horticulture, agriculture, entomology, and the negative effects of Drufo pursuant to Rule 702. Their knowledge and skill in this area have been shown.
Okay, and any objection or voir dire to the expert tender?
No objection, Your Honor.
Okay, then Dr. Rogers is tendered as an expert and you may proceed.
Thank you. Are you familiar with Drufo?
I am.
And have you done any studies about Drufo as a product?
I have.
And what did you explain in this study?
Well, I discovered that Drufo was developed around 2003 by the scientist of Lush Fertilizers Research and Development Team. And I personally analyzed the chemical makeup of each product using a mass spectrometer at Berkeley. It was already known that Drufo is carcinogenic in rats, so I decided to dig a little deeper. The study found an increase in serious health conditions and diagnoses in those individuals who are exposed to Drufo, as compared to a control group. Specifically, the study found higher incidence of cancer, including non-Hodgkin's lymphoma.
And did this study follow the scientific process?
It did.
Once conducting this study, did your findings lead you to do any more research?
Yes, it did.
And how was this new study conducted?
Well, in this second study, I put together a control group of people who had never been exposed to Drufo, a group that used products.
Your foundation.
I'm sorry, could you repeat that?
Objection, Your Honor, on grounds of foundation.
Response to foundation?
I can lay more foundation about this study.
Okay, great.
Your Honor, that wasn't what my objection was to.
Okay, apologies, Counselor. What can you clarify your objection?
I objected to the foundation as the witness was not offered as an expert in toxicology or the medical field. Therefore, they are not properly equipped to explain the medical effects or the human run trials.
Okay, so to the clarification would be that it's I guess not a foundation objection, but an objection to the scope of expertise. Response to that for the plaintiff.
Yes, Your
Dr. Rogers does have knowledge in this area based on the 2 studies she did, and she is entered as an expert in the negative effects of Drufo as well.
Okay, I'm going to give you a little bit of leeway and overrule the objection, but counsel for defense, feel free to re-raise if we go beyond this reasonable scope.
Could you restate the question, please?
Of course. And how was this new study conducted?
Well, in this second study, I put together a control group of people who had never been exposed to Drufo, a group that used products containing Drufo on occasion, and a group who were exposed to Drufo on a regular, almost daily basis. And this study monitored those groups over a period of time following this exposure.
And did this new study follow the scientific process?
Yes, it did.
And what was the outcome?
Well, I found that people with prolonged exposure were 10 times more likely to be diagnosed with cancer than those without exposure, and 5 times more likely to be diagnosed with cancer than those without occasional exposure. These studies suggest that there is a correlation between—
Objection, Your Honor. Again, this is outside of the scope of the witness.
Response?
Permission to talk to my co-counsel?
Certainly.
Dr. Rogers has conducted multiple studies in this field, and her knowledge has been shown. She's also admitted as an expert in this case today.
Okay, I'm going to overrule the objection. Please continue.
Yeah, please.
Can you explain what non-Hodgkin's lymphoma is?
It's a pretty detrimental cancer, and it kind of kills the body's immune system.
Thank you. And what is the 5-year survival rate of non-Hodgkin's lymphoma?
About 72%.
Your Honor, again, outside of the scope of the witness.
I'm going to overrule. Thank you, Counselor.
In your professional opinion, what do you think about Drufo?
I believe that it was rushed to market without sufficient studies on its safety, and it could be detrimental to any person's health.
And did you hear Ms. Dakota testify today?
I did.
And did you hear Dakota talk about protective clothing use at Haven Landscaping?
I did.
And can using protective gear such as masks help people stay safe when using chemicals like Drufo?
It could, but Dakota testified that she was working in very high degree weather conditions and all the adults and role models around her were not wearing any of these clothes. If I were in her position, I would have done the same thing.
And what did your study find about wearing these types of protective gear?
It was inconclusive about whether these articles of clothing were even protective of Drufo, but I want to try to find a conclusive result in the future.
And how do people contract non-Hodgkin's lymphoma?
Well, it's not genetic and is usually caused by exposure to an environmental condition, including pesticides. And the toxins in these pesticides can be absorbed through the skin or inhaled through the respiratory system.
And have you personally studied Dakota's medical records?
I have.
And based on your general knowledge of Drufo, could a chemical like Drufo lead to cancer such as non-Hodgkin's lymphoma?
Yes.
And in your opinion, could Drufo have caused Dakota's non-Hodgkin's lymphoma?
In my opinion, absolutely.
Thank you, Your Honor. No further questions.
Thank you. Cross-examination?
Thank you,
Your
Your
Honor, sorry, one moment. One of our witnesses got locked out of the Zoom meeting. Could you let her in?
Oh, sure. Let me see if I can. I'm not sure if I have the ability to do that. That might be something that we need Heather to do. One moment.
Thank you.
One moment.
Excuse me, Your Honor, I believe you are muted.
Okay, they are working on it.
Permission to proceed at this time, Your Honor.
Yes, if everyone's back, please proceed. Thank you.
Dr. Rogers, have you ever been to medical school before?
No, I haven't had the privilege.
Have you ever treated a patient before?
Well, if I haven't gone to medical school, I doubt I've treated a patient.
I'd like to now redirect your attention. You've been studying the effects of chemicals on the body, yes?
Yes, that is correct.
One of these chemicals is Drufo?
Yes.
May I now direct your attention to Exhibit 7? You have 6 research publications, yes?
Yeah.
4 of these publications are on Drufo?
Yeah, they are.
Your Honor, we move to admit Exhibit 7 at this time.
Any objection to Exhibit 7?
No, Your Honor.
7 is admitted.
A large portion of your career is based off the study of Drufo, yes?
A good amount.
And you've studied the commercial utility of Drufo as well?
Mm-hmm.
In fact, your first scientific publication was on the commercial utility of Drufo?
Yes, it was.
And your first professional publication was in 2013, yes?
I believe it was in 2003.
Your first professional publication on Drufo was in 2013,
Oh, yes,
yes?
it was.
And your second publication on the commercial effects of the product was published in 2019?
Yeah.
In fact, your most recent research publications were published in 2019?
Yes,
And yet you're here testifying on the medical effects of Drufo.
I am.
But as you stated before, you have no formal medical education.
No, I said that before.
So to clarify, you did say you have no formal education in the
Yes.
medical field. And you believe Drufo has a correlation to non-Hodgkin's lymphoma,
Yes, strongly.
but you have no conclusive evidence to suggest Drufo causes cancer.
Well, actually, my only inconclusive study was the one about the protective clothing, not about Drufo causing cancer.
In your witness statement, you stated correlation of this chemical, not causation, though.
I did state correlation.
In fact, nowhere in your witness statement do you suggest any causation of cancer by Drufo.
Well, as a member of the scientific community, I can never guarantee 100%. So yes, I stated correlation.
You came to a set of recommendations based off your research for the use of this product, yes?
I'm sorry, could you repeat the question?
You came to a set of recommendations based on your research for the use of products containing Drufo, yes?
Yes.
And one of those recommendations was to utilize protective clothing that covers exposed skin.
Yeah.
And another one of those recommendations was to use a medical grade protective face mask, such as an N95.
That's what it says on the label. Yeah.
And earlier in your to clarify, that was your recommendation to use a medical grade protective face mask, such as an N95. That was not on the label. It was on the label, but not.
I believe I said in my statement, it could possibly help, not that it would prevent.
No, in your witness statement, you said that one of these recommendations was to use a medical grade protective face mask, such as an N95. And I can point you to the line number if needed.
No, I completely understand what you're saying. I said it was possible, not prevention.
And you said earlier in your direct exam that you would have done exactly what Dakota did and not have followed these recommendations.
In Dakota's knowledge, in her shoes.
And these go against your set of recommendations based on your research.
Again, just possible, not prevention. And I guess it could go against it, yeah.
Okay. Moving on, you've never been to medical school before, correct?
Like I've said multiple times before, no.
And as you stated before, you've never treated a patient?
No.
Asked and answered.
Overruled.
So to clarify, you were not a medical doctor?
No, I am not a medical doctor, although I do have my PhD in horticulture, entomology, and agriculture.
But you are not a medical doctor?
No.
Thank you, Your Honor. No further questions.
Thank you. Any redirect?
Yes, Your Honor. Dr. Rogers, can you remind me how many studies you've done on Drufo?
2.
And would you consider these studies to be experience in this field?
I would.
And
Objection, Your Honor, incorrect information. The witness has completed 4 studies on Drufo.
I'm going to go ahead and overrule the objection, but I will remind the witness that she is under oath and should stick to the case problem. Thank you.
And finally, what did your studies find about using protective clothing?
Inconclusive results.
Okay, thank you, Your Honor. No further questions.
Wonderful. Are there any further witnesses or evidence from the plaintiff?
No, we have no more witnesses, Your Honor.
Okay. And does the plaintiff rest?
Yes, Your Honor.
Wonderful. Defense, would you like to present any evidence?
Yes, Your Honor. We now call Blake Doncourt to the stand. Good evening, Ms. Doncourt. Could you please introduce yourself to the jury?
Absolutely. My name is Blake Doncourt.
And what is your position at Lush Fertilizer?
I'm the CEO and the founder of the company.
And when did you first start this company?
I started this company back in 2000, and since then I've grown it to what it is today.
Could you tell us a little bit about your company?
Yeah, so for starters, it's a family-owned company, and we were able to gain such a following because of our connection to our customers and our value of the community.
Could you tell us what you've done to become profitable?
Absolutely. So for starters, we were able to develop a one-of-a-kind product. From there, we drew in investors and continued the research and the growth process, and developed the company to what it is right now.
And what has becoming profitable allowed you to do?
We've been lucky enough to have enough financial cushion to direct 10% of our annual profit to charities that are working to reduce the nitrogen footprint.
Objection, relevance.
Response to relevance.
Your Honor, the plaintiff has alleged that my client hid evidence, and I am establishing that this is not in the character of their company.
I'm going to sustain the objection at this time because her character has not yet been addressed by the plaintiff. So if that does come up on cross-examination, you're welcome to discuss it on redirect.
I want to now focus your attention on the baking of the products. Why don't you bake your products?
Well, baking is a process that we go through when we know our products are carcinogenic. We know for a fact that there is no evidence indicating this product specifically is carcinogenic, and therefore baking it is just an unnecessary process.
And I'd like to now redirect your attention. How do you know Carson Durst?
Carson Durst is a family friend. We've known her for years. She worked for my company for a period of time, I want to say 10 or 15 years ago. And since then, we haven't really spoken until this court case was brought to light.
At any point, did Carson come to you with any information alleging Drufo is dangerous?
No, like I said, Carson worked for me on my research and development team for many years, and not once was any risk or dangers of my products brought to my attention.
Were you accessible to Carson?
Absolutely. I like to pride myself on having a very personal relationship with all my employees. So we had meetings weekly, and I was also available by email or phone, and not once did I receive anything from Carson.
And what exactly was Carson's job at Lush?
So as I said, Carson was on our research and development team. So this means researching the chemicals in our products, and a very big portion of that job is ensuring that our products are safe for the consumer use.
At any point, did Carson Durst, as a family friend, ever notify you of any dangers of your products?
No, Carson specifically was responsible for doing that kind of work within my company, and never once was I told about any of these dangers.
Were you ever sent an email by Ms. Durst?
No.
Did Carson alert any of your other employees at the company?
No, not that I was aware of.
Did any of these other employees find research that aligned with Carson's claims?
No, Carson worked on a team with about 20 other researchers, and none of them found anything that assimilated with what Carson had found.
Did Carson alert you of these dangers after 1 year of not working at your company?
No, she did not.
What about 2 years later?
Nope.
10 years?
No, I did not hear anything about these so-called dangers of my products until this case.
Thank you, Ms. Donkert. No further questions, Your Honor.
Thank you, Counselor. Cross-examination.
Yes, Your Honor. Good evening, Ms. Blake Doncourt.
Good evening.
You are the Chief Executive Officer at Lush Fertilizer, correct?
Yes.
And you started the company in 2000?
Yep.
And your company developed Drufo as a product?
That's correct.
And you've recently gone through a divorce with Miss Morgan Doncourt?
Objection, Your Honor. Relevance.
Response to relevance.
I'm laying foundation about the financial strain Ms. Doncourt is under relating to the cost of baking their fertilizer.
And why is that relevant?
Because they chose not to bake the fertilizer and eliminate all risks.
Okay, objection though is overruled.
You called Morgan a gold digger.
Often I found Morgan using me for, I guess, her own financial gain. Yes.
And the judge ordered you to pay Morgan a large amount of money every month.
The divorce was quite expensive, but yeah.
And you're also paying investors who provided startup funds for your company.
That's correct. Investors are a very big part of our company and the reason I think it's so successful.
And would you say this is a lot of financial pressure?
I think it's manageable. It's obviously definitely a financial consideration, but it's nothing out of control.
And Lush conducted studies about the safety of Darufo, correct?
Oh, absolutely. We pride ourselves on our products being very safe.
And did you hear Carson Durst testify today?
I did.
And do you personally know Carson?
I did a while ago. I have since moved apart from my relationship with Carson, but yes, I knew her personally at one point.
And Miss Carson Durst was a close family friend and a former employee, yes?
Yeah.
Miss Durst mentioned she heard a female colleague bring up the safety concerns of Darufo. Had you heard about this?
Can you repeat the question?
Mm-hmm. You heard Miss Durst mention that she had heard a female colleague bring up the safety concerns about Darufo. Had you heard anything?
Hearsay? Asking for hearsay.
Response to the objection for hearsay.
Ms. Durst previously testified about this. I was just asking if she had heard about it before the trial today.
Overruled.
Could you repeat the question?
Of course. You heard Ms. Durst mention that she heard a female colleague bring up the safety concerns of Darufo. Had you heard about this?
Yes. Well, I heard it in the trial.
And you heard her talk about how Lush's own scientists recommended baking their fertilizer?
I did in the trial, but I had never heard that before today.
And you say your company donates 10% of profits?
Yes, that's correct.
And so your company values the well-being of others?
Absolutely. That's a big priority in my mind.
And have you heard of baking fertilizer?
Oh, absolutely. It's very common in this industry, but it is specifically used when products are known to be carcinogenic.
And are you aware that baking your product would completely eliminate all cancer risks?
Yes, like I said, it is used when there is a cancer risk, and there is no evidence indicating that any of my products are carcinogenic in that sense.
Would you consider it overkill?
Yes, absolutely. Because like I said, there's no evidence saying that my products are dangerous to the consumer in any way.
So you say it's overkill to bake your fertilizer, but isn't people's health being worth overkill for?
No, not at all. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying, I mean, I would bake my products and I would prioritize that process if they were dangerous to begin with. But I am risking none of the safety of my consumers by not baking my products.
And would you consider cancer a serious health condition?
Absolutely.
And wouldn't you want to eliminate all risks of this serious health condition in your product?
Yes, but like I said, there's really no evidence saying that that is a cause from my products. I wouldn't put a dangerous product on the market, and I most certainly I'm sure that my products are safe.
So having a risk-free product is important to you.
Yes.
And you said the well-being of others is important to you, but not important enough to ensure your product is 100% safe.
Like I said, as of now, to my knowledge, my products are 100% safe, and I wouldn't put them on the market if they weren't.
So Lush is one of the best-selling fertilizer companies, yes?
Yes.
And the success of your company allows you to live a pretty comfortable life?
I'd say so.
And does it cost extra to bake fertilizers?
Yes, it does.
But you don't pay the extra money to ensure your product is completely safe?
Like I said, my product is completely safe to my knowledge and to the many other researchers I have on my team. Baking is reserved for products that are carcinogenic in this industry. So Drufo, or the products that include Drufo, are not baked. That's correct.
But you did hear Carson testify about his concerns for the safety today.
Carson was never a good employee. We ended up going our separate ways, and Carson's opinion that he presented today was never brought to my attention while she actually worked for me. And so there was really nothing that I could assess back when that complaint would have been pertinent.
Okay, thank you, Your Honor. No further questions.
Any redirect?
Yes, Your Honor. So does your personal financial situation have any holding on your company's decisions, Ms. Donkert?
Not at all. I keep my personal affairs entirely separate from my business.
And again, why don't you bake your products?
I don't bake my products because my products, there's no scientific evidence indicating my products to be of any danger to my consumers.
Thank you, Your Honor. No further questions.
Thank you, Counselor. Witness, you are excused. And does the defense have further evidence to present?
Please, Your Honor. The defense calls Skylar Weirs to the stand.
You may proceed.
Thank you, Your Honor. Would you please state your name for the jury?
Yes. Hi, my name is Skylar Weirs.
Let's dive right into your relationship with the plaintiff. How do you know Dakota Weirs?
Dakota is my twin sister. We're fraternal twins, not identical.
And can you tell us a little bit about your upbringing alongside your twin?
Sure. Throughout our childhood, Dakota and I did everything together. We were inseparable. I mean, we took part in all of the same activities inside and outside of school.
And would you say the two of you got along?
I mean, spending that much time together, we would have killed each other had we not got along.
So then where did your interests diverge?
I mean, I didn't do anything if I wasn't alongside Dakota, but Dakota went on her own and worked at Haven Landscaping without me. I have a grass allergy, so I couldn't work there with her. That was the only difference in our upbringings was our jobs.
Let's switch gears a little bit. Can you tell us a little bit more about your profession and why it intersects so directly with this case?
Sure. I write for a magazine called The Rationalist. It's a nonprofit organization devoted to promoting scientific skepticism. It questions whether or not certain controversial scientific facts are as everyone says they are.
And what kinds of pieces had you written for The Rationalist?
Ironically, before Dakota was even diagnosed with non-Hodgkin's lymphoma, I'd been researching and writing a series of articles on modern agritech, specifically about Drufo, the bonding agent present in lush fertilizer.
And what kind of background do you have that makes you so good at what you do?
Well, what I do requires general knowledge, scouring the internet for historical and statistically significant information.
And how are we supposed to know that the facts you're referencing are credible?
I spend most of my time looking through information published by the USDA and NASDA alongside individual agricultural producers and their research.
So let's be clear, you don't have any formal higher education.
I decided to take a different path and focus on my career in writing after my first few articles were such big hits. So I never attended college, no.
However, have you found that a degree is in any way necessary for the research that you do?
Like I said before, all I need is general knowledge, the historical and statistical information which I can find, and the capacity to type the facts I find out onto paper. It's not rocket science. It's about the time and the effort I put into acquiring that information. And clearly you don't need a college degree to do that.
Your Honor, at this point, I would like to qualify Skylar Weirs as an expert in the field of agricultural technology.
Any objection of voir dire?
No, Your Honor.
Okay. The witness is tendered as an expert as stated.
Thank you, Your Honor. Skylar, can you tell us a bit about your financial situation right now?
Definitely. My occupation isn't necessarily synonymous with consistent compensation, and so it's definitely been tough to make ends meet.
And can you tell us a little more about your parents' will and why it might, I don't know, demonstrate your objectivity in this case?
Yeah, Dakota and I are the only beneficiaries. If Dakota loses this case, my dad said he would cover the cost using that money, essentially cutting me out of the will. That could definitely have a substantial impact on my life in the future, but I'm here to do what I feel the responsibility to do.
So let's dive right back into your professional career. Can you tell us a bit about your research regarding Lush fertilizer?
Of course. I found that Drufo is an effective bonding agent. This means that the fertilizer stays on the plant for longer. Because it lasts longer, a significantly smaller amount of fertilizer and pesticides needs to be applied to achieve the desired effect. This is because it does not need to be used as frequently. Drufo reduces the solubility of Lush fertilizer. The nitrogen in this product is also less likely to contaminate groundwater and waterways.
And what is it that makes you so confident in this product?
Well, one of the major reasons I first became interested in researching Lush fertilizer is because of Lush fertilizer's commitment to donate 10% of its annual profits towards reducing nitrogen contamination in groundwater agricultural communities. Lush Fertilizer's CEO, Blake Duncourt, also started a charity to clean the dead zones in the Gulf of Mexico and other oceans.
Great. And can you tell us a bit about Drufo and why you think it could be a game changer?
Lush Fertilizer's development of Drufo actually protected consumers by eliminating exposure to these recognized carcinogens.
And is there any data that suggests that Drufo could be a cancer-causing substance?
Well, the research on whether Drufo causes cancers like non-Hodgkin's lymphoma is inconclusive.
Objection, Your Honor. Beyond the scope.
I'm going to overrule. Thank you.
Would you like me to restate the question?
Yeah.
So can you tell us a bit about if there's any causal relationship between Drufo and cancer?
Yeah, there is a much clearer causal link between other pesticides and cancer. The International Agency for Research on Cancer categorizes arsenic as a carcinogen premens, and it categorizes glyphosate as a possible carcinogen. In contrast, I'm not aware of any study that has established a causal link between Drufo and cancer with any level of certainty.
That will be all. Thank you, Your Honor. I have no further questions.
Excuse me. Sorry to interrupt, but I just wanted to do this while the clock wasn't running. The witnesses, Dakota Weirs and Blake Doncourt are not able to connect to any Wi-Fi network and join us, but they are finished with their testimonies. So would they be allowed to just be officially done with this?
Yeah, I don't think there's any issue with that if they're done with their roles.
Thank you so much, Your Honor.
No worries. Okay, I think are we on cross-examination?
Yes.
Okay, you may proceed.
Thank you. So, Ms. Skylar Weirs, do you have a degree in toxicology?
I do not.
A degree in epidemiology?
No.
Oncology?
Nope.
Do you have a medical degree?
I do not.
And am I correct in saying you don't even have a college degree?
Objection, Your Honor. What's the relevance?
Response to relevance?
I believe this goes to show the knowledge of the witness. I think this was already stated that she doesn't have a college degree. Indirect.
Wasn't that addressed in direct, Counselor?
It was. Can I have a response, Your Honor?
You may.
She was directly qualified as an expert in agricultural technology, clearly stating that she has no need for any of these things. We went over them.
I'm going to permit the testimony to clarify what the witness is and is not qualified to testify about.
Ms. Skylar Weirs, you do write for the magazine Rationalist, correct?
Yes.
They're devoted to promoting scientific skepticism and resisting the spread of pseudoscience, superstition, and irrational beliefs.
Yes.
Is it true that in the past you have written articles supporting UFOs, flat earth theory, chemtrails, and anti-vax
Objection,
culture?
Your Honor, relevance.
Overruled.
Sorry, could you repeat the question?
Is it true that in the past you have written articles supporting UFOs, flat earth theory, chemtrails, and anti-vax culture?
Yeah, that was towards the beginning of my career. I've decided to focus on more relevant
Thank you.
things.
You're paid for this writing, correct?
Yes.
And you are being paid to testify?
No, I am not.
I believe you are. Expert witnesses are paid to testify.
Objection, Your Honor, again, relevance.
Overruled.
Could you repeat the question one more time?
So, are you being paid to testify?
I am being paid to testify, but it is by the hour, not by my opinion on the case.
Is it true that you have a history in gambling?
Unfortunately, I do, yes.
Objection, Your Honor, relevance.
What's the relevance?
If I were to move on to the next question, it is to show possible bias in this in this witness's statement.
Counsel for the defense, any further response?
I'm just wondering how a possible gambling addiction has anything to do with her knowledge of chemical compounds.
It's not in regards to her knowledge, it's in regards to her bias against the plaintiff.
Can I ask, counselor, is there a connection between the gambling and the bias that I'm not seeing?
Am I allowed to?
We're constructively sidebarred, so the jury is out of earshot.
Right.
Jury,
if I were allowed to move on, I would have moved on to go over the gambling and how her parents support her.
I'm going to sustain the objection.
All right. All right. Is it true that recently your father agreed to shoulder the cost of Dakota's expensive medical treatment in the event this lawsuit isn't successful?
Yeah.
All right. No further questions, Your Honor.
Redirect?
Just for a moment, Your Honor. Ms. Weirs, do you have any greater financial stake in this case than any other witness who's testifying as a professional?
I do not.
And do you get any benefit from winning this case?
It actually probably hurts me more than it benefits me, but I want to do the right thing.
Great. I have no further questions, Your Honor.
Okay, thank you. And any further witnesses from the defense?
Yes, please, Your Honor. We call to the stand Dr. Devin Williams, please.
Great. Dr. Williams, I'll remind you, you are under oath and you may proceed.
Can you please state your name for the court?
Yes, my name is Dr. Devin Williams.
Dr. Williams, why are you here?
I'm here today to discuss the accusations leveled against Lush Fertilizer and a supposed carcinogenic chemical found in the fertilizer, which is called Drufo.
And can you tell us what you do for work?
I lead the toxicology research and development labs at Lush Fertilizer. I am the ongoing chair of the company's ethics committee, and I have worked in the field of toxicology for many, many years.
Your Honor, let the record reflect that I am now sharing with opposing counsel and this witness what has been marked as Exhibit 9. Now, can I refer you to Exhibit 9? Dr. Williams, what is this?
It is a copy of my curriculum vitae.
And what is a curriculum vitae?
For those of you who don't know, it's like my resume. It's a list of qualifications and awards.
Did you create this document?
Yes, I did.
And do you believe this document is an adequate representation of the work you've done?
Absolutely, yes.
Your Honor, we move for admission of Exhibit 9 into evidence.
Any objection to Exhibit 9?
No, Your Honor.
Okay, 9 is admitted.
Now, Dr. Williams, can you please tell us about your educational background?
Absolutely. So I attended the University of Utah and I received my bachelor's degree in toxicology. I later went to CSU and received my master's in forensic toxicology specialization, sorry. I later received my PhD in pharmacology and toxicology specialization.
What have you done in your years since attending Utah and CSU?
I have received various toxicology certifications. I worked on 6 different publications and presentations. I have also taught 3 classes regarding toxicology and served as a chief medical examiner, toxicologist in the Larimer County office.
Now, you mentioned you had various toxicology certifications. Can you tell us what those are?
I hold a variety of certifications in 4 different states, including Colorado. In Colorado, I am certified for clinical and forensic toxicology.
Now, through your training, what skills have you developed?
I have learned how to identify potentially harmful substances and how they will harm the average human.
Your Honor, I tender Dr. Devin Williams as an expert in toxicology and chemical research.
Any objection or voir dire?
No, Your Honor.
Okay, she is tendered as stated.
Dr. Williams, can you first explain what exactly is DRUFO?
DRUFO is a chemical that Lush uses in its fertilizer products with a goal to reduce the nitrate pollutants that are released when the fertilizer is being used.
What is the purpose of DRUFO in the fertilizer?
To put it simply, the purpose of DRUFO is to limit the release of toxins when the fertilizer product is used, and this in turn improves the environment.
Can you elaborate on how DRUFO improves the environment?
Yes, so DRUFO is a chemical that works in favor of the environment by reducing the amount of nitrogen pollution that would otherwise be released from traditional and competing fertilizers.
What exactly is nitrogen pollution?
To put it simply, nitrogen pollution is the result of the process when an excess amount of nitrogen is carried into bodies of water by rain, irrigation runoff, other things. This in turn will negatively harm the environment, which is the opposite of what we want to do.
Why is nitrogen pollution bad for the environment?
When there's an excess nitrate in bodies of water, it leads to dense algae blooms, and this is bad for fish and other animals because it leads to a reduced amount of oxygen. Not only is it bad for animals, but the algae blooms can harbor a lot of bacteria that are harmful for humans.
In your expert opinion, do you believe that the environment benefits from the use of DRUFO?
Without a doubt, absolutely.
Now, Dr. Williams, is DRUFO used in all of Lush's fertilizers?
No, only in the US.
Why is DRUFO only used in the US?
DRUFO is actually banned in the EU, but this is not for any harm that DRUFO causes or poses.
Then why is DRUFO banned in the EU?
So the chemical was banned under the EU Nitrate Directive, which states that no new fertilizer formulations can be used if they contribute to a certain level of nitrate accumulation.
Do you believe that DRUFO should have been banned?
No, I think the chemical is absolutely misrepresented by this ban.
How so?
While DRUFO reduces the number of nitrates, it still in its form has nitrogen. In labs like I understand the EU uses, it will appear equal to traditional fertilizers in terms of pollution, even though the outside testing environment is far better, and it proves to be far better for the environment.
Now, have you conducted any research into the allegation that there's a link between the use of DRUFO and elevated rates of cancer?
I have done various data analyses which looked at the rates of cancer and the use of DRUFO.
And what were the results of your studies?
To explain it simply, looking at a group of 10 people from all different walks of life, farmers, teachers, bus drivers, teachers, whoever, they all have the same likelihood to develop cancer. If we look at a general population of people, they all, again, have the same likelihood to develop non-Hodgkin's lymphoma more specifically, as someone who was in direct contact with Drufo.
Now, how would you interpret your findings?
This demonstrates to me that there is no verifiable relationship or link between the use of Drufo and any elevated rate of cancer for that matter.
So based on your research and finding, what is your expert opinion about the allegation that Drufo causes cancer?
From all the research, I have concluded that there is absolutely no correlation between the rate of cancer and the use of Drufo by any extended period of time.
Now, are you aware of Dr. Casey Rogers' study of the correlation between exposure to Drufo and non-Hodgkin's lymphoma?
Yes, I am.
And have you had the opportunity to review the study?
Yes, I did.
Did you have any issues or concerns with the study?
Absolutely. First, the study was never peer reviewed. And second, the study has never been replicated.
Why does it matter to you that the study has not been peer reviewed or replicated?
Well, both of these issues completely compromise the entire validity of Dr. Casey Rogers' study.
Can you explain why?
Well, it is imperative that a scientific study is replicated to ensure that the findings are in fact accurate. Anything, for that matter, can happen once, but to ensure real finding, there needs to be a constant correlation. Replication of the findings confirms that the findings that the doctor presents are in fact real and can be weighed upon in a trial such as this.
Now, why is peer review important?
Peer review is also important to ensure that the work is done correctly and ethically. Otherwise, anyone, the man you find on the street, he could call it anything he wanted to study.
Now, what is your expert conclusion about the findings in the study?
This study simply cannot be relied upon and should be disqualified from the case.
No further questions, Your Honor.
Okay, cross-examination.
Yes, Your Honor. Good evening, Dr. Devin Williams.
Good evening.
Is it true that you're the lead toxicology research and development scientist at Lush's Labs?
Yes, I am.
And you're the outgoing chair of the company's ethics committee?
Yes.
And you said you were hired to ensure Lush was being cost effective?
Yes.
Is it true that you admit to having a financial bias in this case?
I get paid by the hour, not for my opinion on the case.
And is it true that Drufo's banned in not only France, but the EU?
Yes, but I do not believe that the EU is using their rules correctly.
Is it banned?
Our product. May I finish, please?
Yeah.
I believe that in the EU, the rules they have are in fact not, they are about the nitrogen rather than the actual carcinogenic possibility of the chemical. In reality, the EU's test is not, it cannot be valid in the US as it studies nitrogen rather than the carcinogenic possibility.
But you did not choose to fight this ban.
I did not choose to fight it as I am not in Europe. I'm in the US and it is not banned in the US, so I did not need to fight it. I just don't believe it should be banned.
Drufo contains nitrogen, yes?
Yes.
And nitrogen could be harmful in humans.
I mean, yes, sure. Yeah.
A study found that Drufo is harmful in rats, correct?
It is carcinogenic in rats, that is correct.
And it's true that you never mentioned a study concluding that Drufo is safe?
In what context?
That Drufo does not pose any harm to humans?
I do not believe it poses any harm to humans, no.
But did you mention a study that concludes that?
No, I did not.
As the chair of the ethics committee, shouldn't you be knowledgeable about tests providing that Drufo is safe?
I am knowledgeable.
The only study you mentioned in your statement was Dr. Rogers' study, yes?
Yes, that is correct.
Moving on, your livelihood is Drufo, correct?
I would not say that, no.
But you make your living with Lush?
I make my living off being a successful employee. But my livelihood is not Drufo. No,
You're now saying that Lush and Darufo can be dangerous?
I do not believe that. No.
But you said it contains nitrogen and nitrogen could be dangerous.
Anything could be dangerous if you want it to be dangerous.
Lush wants to be the best-selling fertilizer company.
We are the best-selling fertilizer company.
Wouldn't they rather create a product that would get them to the top instead of being 100% safe?
We are the best-selling fertilizer company, and our product is the best on the market. So I believe we're successful in what we're already doing and do not need to change that.
You have experience analyzing chemicals such as Darufo.
Extensive experience, yes.
Would you agree analyzing chemicals takes a long time?
Relevance?
Response to relevance.
I'm laying a foundation for the fact that analyzing chemicals takes a long time. And she stated in her study there was a constant turnover at Lush within their studies, possibly hindering the timeliness of them.
Okay, the objection is overruled.
I'll restate the question.
Yes, please.
Would you agree to analyzing chemicals takes a long time?
Yes, it does. It is a difficult field of work, but I believe it's worth it.
Would you agree analyzing chemicals takes commitment to the project at hand?
Absolutely.
But when you started working at Lush, there was constant turnover.
How does that relate to your previous question?
You're not committed to the project when
I
there's
am committed to the project.
The team was not committed to the project if there was constant turnover,
The team is committed to the project.
but there was constant turnover.
There may have been constant turnover, but that means we were still committed to what we were doing.
And you said half the scientists left the Darufo team.
Yes, but I believe we have the best ones still on our team.
You said this turnover started to impact the timeliness of the studies.
It may have impacted the timeliness, but not the validity of our work and how good our work is and that it can be weighed upon.
So these studies that were trying to prove Darufo is safe were affected in some way by the turnover.
Not in the validity of them.
But the timeliness was affected.
Even if timeliness was affected, if our outcome is still what we want it to be, I believe it is. The timeliness doesn't matter. It doesn't matter how long it takes to do something. As long as the end product is what we want, that's all that matters.
Thank you, Your Honor. No further questions.
Thank you, Counselor. Redirect.
Yes, please. Dr. Williams, does time have anything to do with the results of a scientific study?
Absolutely not.
And while working at the various years you were with Lush, did you find any research that indicated that there would be a connection between Drufo and cancer?
Absolutely none.
No further questions, Your Honor. The defense rests.
Thank you, Counselor. With the defense resting, and I don't believe we have any permission in this forum for rebuttal evidence, are the parties prepared to proceed with closing arguments, or does anyone need a few minutes to prepare?
We are prepared, Your Honor.
Okay. Plaintiff?
We are prepared, Your Honor.
Okay, you may proceed.
Thank you. Your Honor, members of the jury and opposing counsel, my name is Katie Hay and I represent the plaintiff in this case. My client was once an active member of her community. She volunteered at homeless shelters, was a part of student leadership in her school, and was on her way to Juilliard, and was an avid piano player, using piano as a way to connect with her late grandfather. Now, all of these things have been stolen from her as a result of her use of Lush fertilizer. The chemical compound Drufo, which is contained in Lush fertilizer, caused her to contract a non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. Poison for profit. This tumor has left her in sheer pain and utter agony. All the things that made her happy have been taken from her. Members of the jury, as the plaintiff, we do have the burden of proof. There were 4 things we had to prove. 1, the defendant manufactured a fertilizer product containing the chemical compound known as Drufo. You've heard from multiple witnesses this was indeed the case. There's no question about that. 2, the defendant was negligent by failing to exercise reasonable care. You heard from Carson, Lush's ignorance and negligence when it came to the research around Drufo so they could make a profit. 3, the plaintiff was one of those persons the defendant should have expected to use the product. Dakota worked at a landscaping company and often used fertilizer. Lush should have expected landscaping companies and their workers to use the product. And finally, the plaintiff had damages caused by the defendant's negligence while the product was being used in a manner the defendant should have reasonably expected. It isn't uncommon for young teens like Dakota to work at landscaping companies. No, she didn't wear all of the suggested clothing for safety, but she had been doing what all the adult role models around her were doing. She was a child in sweltering summer heat. It's no wonder she couldn't handle wearing all of the suggested clothing. Lush barely made an effort and completely neglected to warn people about the true dangers of their product, despite the research they chose to ignore. Lush Fertilizer had an opportunity to ensure their product safety by baking it. This was something they do to sell their product in other countries, but they chose not to and chose to consider selling their poison. Lush Fertilizer ruined Dakota's life. They took everything from my client just so they could make a profit. They failed to show how dangerous their product truly was and the potential effects of it. Dakota Weirs was not at fault for her cancer. It was Lush's negligence and ignorance that was truly at fault. Members of the jury, we ask that you rule in favor of the plaintiff and be sure that she is awarded damages in the maximum amount allowed by law. Thank you.
Thank you, Counselor. And before we get a defense closing, can I just get some clarification from the timekeeper whether Team A has any time for rebuttal remaining?
Yes, Your Honor, they have 2 minutes.
Okay, great. Defense, your closing argument.
Please, Your Honor. Responsibility. As a multinational corporation that set out to do good in this world, Lush holds responsibility of producing, advertising, and selling their products safely. Lush has undeniably upheld their end of that bargain. Lush is a company that should remind you of trust. This trust is inspired by a perfect record, international support, and a product that has created to make modern agriculture safer. Throughout this process, we've heard from several representatives of the plaintiff, all of which bring forth unconfirmed and speculative data about a product that has never raised a single red flag in a country with the most intensive agricultural regulations in the world. We've now heard about several experiences and procedures concerning the chemical compound Drufo. Here's what we know. We heard from Blake Doncourt, CEO of Lush, who has shown every indicator of being a reliable and trustworthy partner in the future of agricultural technology and sustainable practices. We know that it is his responsibility to put a product on the market which he is confident in the safety and effectiveness of. She has done exactly that. We also heard from Skylar Weirs, who came forward today with the knowledge that her testimony could lead to her being entirely cut out of her parents' will. However, she knows that it is her responsibility as an individual who has done the background research on Drufo to tell us what we need to hear. Lastly, brought in as an expert with their opinion and knowledge being understood as fact, based on her history and expertise, Dr. Williams made it clear that Drufo does not cause cancer. She also made sure to remind us that correlation does not and cannot equal causation. It would be unreasonable to question such a knowledgeable and credible individual. We also know that there has never been any conclusive data to say that the pesticide has any carcinogenic effects. We know that Carson Durst, the only person to ever come forward within Lush, saying that Drufo has potentially dangerous consequences, came forward after having worked for the direct competitor of Lush Fertilizer. And it's impossible to disregard the irony of the situation. Dr. Casey Rogers, who was brought into this case as an expert, somehow shows almost no expertise outside of the chemical compound Drufo and uses studies that are clearly unreliable and limited in their scientific significance. Despite their expertise in this very limited scope, Dr. Rogers can't conclusively say that there's any causation involved in this case, and additionally has had no peer review or validation by a reliable source. The misuse of responsibility comes in a most unfortunate situation. Dakota Weirs is a kid who has been tasked with an insurmountable task, beating cancer, a task which you wouldn't wish on your worst enemies. However, we need to be clear that this was not done by Lush Fertilizers, but rather by a somewhat simple mistake with high risks. Lush Fertilizer explicitly says to use safety precautions, gloves, masks, etc., regardless of the fact that Drufo is not a known carcinogen. We take that extra safety precaution as a company to ensure the safety of our users. That is our responsibility. As Dakota Weirs began working at Haven Landscaping, the responsibility of safety precaution is placed on the user. Ms. Weirs stated that she felt no obligation to wear safety gear given that she didn't feel the risks were great enough to make it worthwhile. This situation is almost like wearing a seatbelt. Regardless of whether or not you feel a personal responsibility to wear it, you're required to, because regardless of the wide range of risks involved, it falls on the individual to maintain their own safety. Each car company clearly explains that seatbelts are not an option, but rather a requirement. Even if your role models aren't wearing their seatbelts, you'll still find yourself with a ticket on your desk. As Dakota worked long hours in the heat of summer, it's understandable that the heat of the safety gear may have been uncomfortable, but disregarding such imperative instructions is a mistake that cannot be tolerated while working on any variety of chemicals. As jurors, it has now become your responsibility to make the hard decisions and look at the facts of this case. Jury instructions number 4 instructs you to recognize whether or not Drufo conclusively causes cancer. And after hearing from several experts, we know this is not the case. You are the sole judges of the truthfulness and credibility of these witnesses. And as jury instruction number 13 says, you must not be influenced by sympathy, bias, or prejudice, or against any party, for or against any party in this case. Make the distinction between empathy and responsibility. After all, Lush Fertilizer does not hold the burden of proof in this case. Thank you.
Thank you, Counselor. Rebuttal closing.
Yes, Your Honor. The defense claims that Blake Doncourt was confident in the safety of their product. However, Blake, as well as management at Lush, ignored multiple concerns brought to them regarding their product. The studies done by Lush are made to be read in a way that favors them. They do not truly care about the safety of their product and let people be harmed because of it. They had opportunities to ensure their product's safety, but chose not to follow through. They also expect a child to follow safety guidelines with no clear reason why she should. As she stated, if Dakota had known about the true dangers, if she had known she could develop cancer because of this product, she would have acted safer. It is Lush's responsibility to inform their product users about the true dangers. Thank you.
Thank you, Counselor. And great job, everyone. At this point, I think our panelists and I need to finish our scoring, and then we'll take a few minutes to give a couple of notes before we wrap up. I'm going to go ahead and see if I can.
Once we've received all you guys' scores, then I'll let you guys know that you guys can proceed with comments for the teams.
Okay, thank you. Sorry, really quick. I just want to make sure I'm getting the names right. Can somebody clarify for me the order of the witnesses that we had throughout the trial?
Sorry, could you repeat what you said?
Sure. Can you just let me know the order of the plaintiff's witnesses and then the order of the defense witnesses, just to make sure I'm getting all of the scores correct?
Yes, we had Dakota, Carson Durst, and then Casey Rogers.
Okay, and then for the defense?
We had Blake Doncourt, Skylar Weirs, and then Dr. Devin Williams.
Okay, thank you.
And Stephen, once you have yours submitted, then you're good to go. The other twos have been submitted already, so then you can give your review. And I'm gonna step away for a second because we have some stuff that on the back end that I gotta go deal with, but I'll end this after I see that you guys have all been done communicating. Your team, coaches should get your next round assignments hopefully tonight before we leave tonight, maybe a little bit later, just so you guys know where you're at tomorrow. Thank you all for participating, and we look forward to tomorrow and to wrapping up the rest of the tournament. Once you guys are done, you guys can just go ahead and bail out, and I'll end this as soon as I see that things are wrapping up, okay?
Heather, before you go, are you still there?
I am.
Thank you. What is the preferred method of me sending you this sheet?
You should be able to push submit at the bottom.
Oh, fantastic. Submitted.
All right, there you guys are.
Okay, great. So I'm supposed to remind our panelists that we don't have much time for chats afterward. So if you could keep chats brief, 1 to 2 minutes or less per panelist. And if you could let us know what you liked about the performances, starting with Kyra.
Hey, good evening, everyone. I'm Kira Plie. I just want to start by saying that you all should be very proud of yourself. I think you did a great job, and it's clear the amount of effort you put into this. I think there was a lot of great knowledge about the facts of this case. There was a lot of good work laying foundation, introducing evidence. I also think there was great objections raised, responses to objections, and great knowledge of the law. I do have a couple pointers for constructive criticism. The first being to always remember, when you are in a courtroom, every gesture you make and every facial expression you make, anyone in the courtroom could see it, including the jurors. So you want to make sure to be conscious of any snickering or odd faces that you're making. Another point that I just want to make briefly is sometimes you got to let the facts speak for themselves and be cognizant of the tone with which you deliver information, and that it's just as effective to say it calmly, emotionless, and clear as opposed to taking a tone with the witness. So just keeping those things in mind, I think you all did an amazing performance. And again, you should be very proud of yourselves.
I agree with Kira. You all did really good. I can tell that you worked very hard. You should thank your coaches, thank your parents, thank yourselves. You should be proud of yourselves. You did a really good job. Everything that Kira said, I would agree with. And it's weird because now that we're doing, even attorneys doing everything by video and virtually, you always have to be more aware that people can see everything that you do. So every time you even touch your nose, everybody's like, what are you doing with your nose? You got to be really careful what you do. But you did a great job. Good luck for the next round and have a great evening, everybody. Thanks. Thanks, Kira. Thanks, Judge.
Okay, and for me, my name is Stephen Visioli, as I mentioned, and I'm an attorney. I practice divorce law and do a lot of high conflict litigation. So I'm in trial a lot. And I got to say, you guys are better than a lot of the attorneys that I go up against regularly. So just to echo the same compliments, you guys should be very proud of yourselves. And if you like doing this, you should keep at it, because if you do eventually become an attorney, this practice really does have an effect on how well you litigate later. Just a couple of pointers. And a lot of this is just stuff that you're going to get the more you practice. Working on witness control. Sometimes you don't need to get the exact answer, especially if you're cross-examining a witness. As long as you're making the thing that you're asking more important than what they're saying, it doesn't really matter what their answer is. So, for instance, with impeaching by omission, if the thing is not in their statement, you don't really have to like tie them down to what's missing in there. Just kind of make a point, right? Like, surely you would have included something that important in your report, right? And if no matter what they say, you can just move on from there. And moving on is going to be more effective on jurors. And then I just for voir dire, I offered a lot of opportunities to voir dire and nobody took it. But I think that you all should. I think every time there's an opportunity to voir dire an expert, you might as well get a little miniature cross-examination in there, snag a few questions, even if you don't, object to the expert tender. That way, for instance, there were objections to the scope of expertise at one point. It's a lot more effective if we've already had a conversation about, what is and is not part of their expertise. And then same with redirect. If you're offered redirect, I always like to say just have one question at least, in the chamber to get a nice final word about it before you go on. So with that, great job, everyone. Really impressed, and I look forward to doing more of these. So great job.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yep. Bye.